Hey, you ever wanted to join an elite team of misfits with magical powers and varying levels of trauma? Well, let's get into this review and find out if this could be the game for you. Today we're going to be taking a look at Tactical Breach Wizards, released on August 22nd, 2024 by Suspicious Developments, a small indie studio that's had about 5 or 6 games to their name now. All of them have been very well received, so we could potentially be seeing the beginnings of another indie darling at the rate that they're going. Before we even get into the meat of the review, I'm just going to go ahead and say the developers for this game definitely put a lot of love and passion into this one, and you can definitely tell it just from the writing on its own. Every character has a lot of character and depth to them. Even if it's mostly just jokes and banter between each other, it all feels organic. On those characters, I'm going to go ahead and let the trailer introduce them because they introduce them far better than I ever could hope to, and far funnier than I could ever hope to, so I'll let the trailer speak for itself.
A disgraced retired Navy seer who can see every possible future, but can't remember his own tragic backstory. The freelance Storm Witch, a private investigator whose mastery of lightning is devastating, unless her enemies aren't standing near windows. The Necromedic, a surgeon who turned to necromancy when she lost her medical license. She can heal you, but she'll have to kill you first. The Rebel Riot Priest, your heavy support. Faith is her armor. But she is also wearing actual armor. Together, there's no threat they can't stop. As long as they can get there by public transport, they can rewind every time they screw it up. And there's an easy mode if they need it. Tactical Breach Wizards.
Now, with all that out of the way, I'm sure you're wondering, how does it play? What's this game all about? It's pretty simple, actually. Some people want to compare it to XCOM, but XCOM this is not. There's no base building, there's no changing out gear and all that stuff. It's nowhere near as complex. You're not going to be dealing with the funny, I had a 99% chance to hit and I still missed. None of that nonsense. Everything you do, it's guaranteed to land. Only in certain very, very niche cases will it not work that way, and the game warns you beforehand when those things start happening and gives you a sort of an idea of how to handle it. Now, the story is more or less a big conspiracy plot based around mana going missing, mana reserves being burned, and a comrade turned renegade trying to spark a world war. But I don't really want to spoil too much more of the plot, so we'll go ahead and move on to the rest of the game from there. Now, one of my favorite aspects of this game is its writing for the characters. Everybody has their own different breed of snark and deadpan comedy. Some of them it's a more gallows humor style, some it's just plain smartassery, and sure, some it's just being clueless or just being the butt of the joke, like my personal favorite guy, Steve Clark, the Traffic Warlock. He doesn't get to do much, but he's the butt of so many jokes, and it's comical every time it happens. And sometimes the comedy can just come from your own gameplay. I can't even recall how many times I was trying to do some kind of challenge or some kind of perfect strategy, and in my deep process of trying to make sure I set everything up perfectly, I missed one detail and sent one of my comrades just careening out of a window screaming, and it was just absolutely hilarious. And then I had to rewind the whole turn and try it again, this time, not fall asleep at the wheel, trying to look 20 moves ahead to try and make this perfect one-turn strategy happen that I just so much love to do, because I'm a perfectionist like that, and this game has optional challenges, and by God, I'm going to go for all the optional challenges that I possibly can, and I'm going to do them all in one run if I possibly can, because I'm crazy like that. Alright, so with that said, let's get into the actual gameplay. The gameplay functions kind of like a tactics game, so everything is on a tile-based grid. Usually varies by map size. It can have any manner of complexities, be it windows and gaps to all kinds of debris, or windows to both block or give access to different sight lines and affect how you can apply your abilities. Though there's never any differences in elevation, so you don't necessarily have to try and think around that. But most of it is based around the keyword of Defenestration, which, as you can see on screen now, your main goal is essentially, and quickest honestly, is to just take and use an ability which, for Jen, it's just going to be the basic force push. For someone like Zan, you're looking at a 3-round burst that only moves on 1 tile. And while you can slam them into the wall for some damage, and Zan's 3-round burst and a few other characters do have damaging abilities, your quickest and most efficient method is to get them near a window and just send them. Just full on send them. Now, as for mission variety, most of it is going to fall down to objectives of either clearing the room and stopping all reinforcements or dealing with all reinforcements, or you're going to be, say, activating a certain PC, or they're going to want you to just survive X number of waves of enemies for each turn. There's not a huge amount of variety in your missions, but it's the way that they convey it. It always feels fresh when you play because of how every puzzle is set up, which in all actuality the game is more of a puzzle game than it actually is a tactics style game or like a RPG. But that isn't to say there's no RPG elements. After every level you still gain experience, though this has been completely confirmed to just be there just to make people happy. You don't actually gain any difference in experience no matter how you beat the level. So even if Jen here knocked out like 30 people in that level and Zan only got 1, they're still going to get a set amount of experience no matter what, so they level up properly and always have access to whatever abilities the devs think that you would or should have. Which, for each level you gain a skill point, and it allows you to alter one of your abilities in a different way, such as Chain Bolt getting an extra target, or the 3-round burst for Zan getting an extra damage added to it, or even just being able to recycle an ability constantly as long as it hits a target at a certain time. And these can have major impacts on how you handle puzzles and how you solve all the tasks that the game throws at you. Now, about those puzzles, you get optional objectives in every stage that are called confidence goals. All of your outfits are unlocked right from the jump for all your characters, but they don't have the confidence to wear them. You gain confidence by completing the objectives in each stage, and some of these can range from just beating it in a single turn to doing a specific amount of damage type in that one mission. Now, tying into all that are the anxiety dreams. These are completely optional missions that you can skip, though the game will also let you skip around to different missions at your leisure, though it's very much not advised. But the anxiety dreams are essentially a showcase of a character and their innate talents. Usually you're going to be playing as the same character but with multiple iterations of them, and you're going to have a goal of completing it using only their abilities, which for things like Jen, where you can't actually do any damage at all unless you actually slam somebody into a wall, it's going to be a bit of a workout on your brain to actually figure out how these abilities can chain into each other and how the character really works. Though, if you manage to beat these anxiety dreams, you get a very big game changer for each character that you manage to complete. And the rewards are more than worth it, and I would say you absolutely want to go through and do each and every one of the anxiety dreams as they show up so that you can be prepared for the final stages. Jen, for example, can take her Chain Bolt and double its targets anywhere from 3 to 6 people as long as she has 2 mana, which can give you an insane amount of control on a lot of maps and really speed up some of the playing, even make some challenges a complete joke to try and pull off. But beyond the gameplay elements of these anxiety dreams, they're also a delve into the mind of each character and shows kind of what is bothering them. What's their problem, be it obsessiveness or constant self-deprecation or paranoia. it helps flesh out the characters even more and makes them a bit more human. Now, tying into that as well is, in between missions, you have the ability to do these optional chats. There aren't too many of them, and they don't have any actual bearing on the game. They don't do any major changes or major shifts in the story, but they kind of give you a way to flesh out the character a bit more and see how they interact or how you think they would interact with people. And while they're absolutely meaningless and completely skippable, they're a nice touch and a show of passion for the developers, which I can truly appreciate. Alright, and one of the last non-gameplay elements I want to touch upon is the conspiracy pegboard. Any of you that have watched a crime show of some kind or seen the jokes of, the guy right there, red tape all over the board and he's just freaking out, it's essentially that. But it gives you a way to make sure you're keeping track of the story and how everything sort of fits together. In between levels, they're going to give you any new characters or new areas or new goals or parts of the plot that have shown up, and it's going to have you try to connect them to either the motives or the team that the person's on, or why this area is being utilized, or what the plan is for that area. Different little things like that. It's another sort of meaningless piece, but it's a nice touch that really just paints a bigger picture for the game, which, again, this was definitely a passion project for the developers, and I can appreciate it, and I hope to see this actually get utilized more at some point in another game, because not enough games do these neat little touches that really build the world and bring it all to life. Now, there's just one last thing I'd like to touch upon, and that's the boss battles. There aren't too many in this game, but they all play like a puzzle like any other part of the game, but with unique rules. For instance, Steve the Warlock here is going to have an attack that happens at the end of every turn that will affect all the affected tiles in front of him that he's facing. So you have to pay attention to your positioning and make sure you're not standing in the way of his attacks, which it's a very simple boss fight, but then you're going to have other ones later in the game where they're outright going to be cheating on you. Everything from they get to attack every time you do something, or they're going to move every single time you do anything at all, and it will get intense very quickly for those particular battles. Though with proper planning and some foresight, you can overcome them and sometimes even trivialize it without even realizing it. On to the sound design though. Your actual attack sounds and everything sound great. Especially the impact sounds. Those are absolutely top notch in my opinion. When you hit someone with a chain bolt, you feel that impact. When you send someone out the window, it feels great to hear the glass shatter from the impact. When you do a charge and slam someone from across the map into the wall, the impact of it sounds amazing. Unfortunately, however, I can't say the same about the music. The music itself isn't necessarily bad. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's also very, very forgettable. Like, you're not going to be humming any of these tunes, or if you're even lucky enough to even remember any of them after the game's over, which is a shame, though it is serviceable. It's not going to harm your experience or, stick out like a sore thumb. It's all very fitting, but it's not going to stick with you either. And as for voice acting, there is none, so there's no comments there for that. No pain grunts, no, falling screams, nothing like that. So, kind of a missed opportunity to at least have some stock sound effects in there for, like a Wilhelm scream or, some of the ones I did at the start of this review. But not a big deal, and honestly, you would probably cycle through them so many times it would probably start to get grating, so I can understand why they didn't. Now, factoring in that you have a survival mode as well as a workshop that allows players to make their own puzzles and upload them for you to play as well as your own, there's a wealth of content to be had here that's going to eat up quite a bit of your time once you get into it. The main story itself you can beat probably within about 8 or so hours, if that. Probably even quicker if you're not trying to go for all the confidence challenges in one run like I was, or trying to do every last little thing that there is to do. If you skip all the dialogue and don't do the challenges, the game will be fairly short. But for completionists, the confidence challenges are going to eat up a substantial part of your playtime as you try to figure out the best way to do this puzzle and retry, redo, and retry and redo over and over until you get that perfect plan that makes you feel like an absolute genius when you finally pull it off. One thing I would like to see added into the game is like a replay feature, sort of to show you how your entire plan flew out in one run, though I'm not entirely sure that it would be feasible or even worthwhile to add to the game. It's just a vanity thing that would be cool to see. But with all that said, I highly recommend this game. It's only about $20. It's a pretty cheap game, and you get your money's worth easily from it, especially if you love puzzle games, which, for me, it's been so many years since I've gotten to play a decent puzzle game that I'd forgotten how good they can actually be when they're done well. And Suspicious Developments, they do it well. If you made it this far in the review, I just wanted to say thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it. Just please leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more of this. I've got more reviews planned out. I've just got to sit down and put it all together. And when they ask you who sent you to the game, just tell them I sent you, and they'll have no clue who the hell you're talking about. But I see you all for the next review. Take care, guys.